Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, December 8th to order. Before I start, we respectfully acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, represented today by the Kasepsin and Songhees nations, whose stewardship of these lands continues to this day. May I have a mover and seconder to adopt today's agenda, please? Thank you. Councillor Grove and Councillor Ward. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. May I have a mover and seconder to adopt the minutes of the October 27th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes? Please, Councillor Grove and Councillor Olson. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. At this point in time, I will open the floor for public participation. We had 0 written submissions submitted prior to the agenda publication, and we had 5 written submissions that were received after agenda publication, and they will be attached to the agenda tomorrow. No members have registered to speak virtually. I don't see anyone online there. And members will be asked to be given the opportunity right now to present their questions or concerns. You'll be given 2 minutes, at which time you'll see a green light. It's on the podium there. The amber light means you've got 30 seconds left, I think it is. And then the red light that we're going to have to ask you to terminate at that point in time. Alternately, you may wish to wait till the agenda item is brought up during the agenda talk. And can I just see a show of hands, the people that want to wait until the item is on the agenda? You want to wait then? So you're not going to do it right now then? Okay. And I just want to remind the public that comments pertaining to bylaw 1700-14 North Latoria Area Plan have been subject to a public hearing and are prohibited at this meeting. Okay, so does anyone speak at this time from the public? Seeing none, I will move on and, oh, Mr. English. Oh, you want to push the button there, John?
Process question.
Yes.
Is it acceptable to ask a question now and then reserve comment for later?
That comment for us, you mean, or comment by you? I'm not too sure. You're going to ask the question now and then comment later?
Yeah, if I ask a question now, does that rule out me being able to make a comment later? Because the comment depends partly on the.
No, I'll rule that I'll rule it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So this is a question for staff through the chair. Please describe all your efforts to obtain public stakeholder input on different options for Metchosin Road prior to preparing your recommendations for City Council today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we shall move on. I will declare the public participation closed, and we'll move on to new business. Item 5.1, which is the Metchosin Road Widening Project, update and design considerations. And before we open it up for the speakers, I will open it up to the public for questions or comments.
Good afternoon. On this bright, shiny, liquid sunshine day. Roger Conrad Colwyn. I'm assuming the proposed design that will be presented today from Metchosin Road is an updated and ongoing work of the Master Transportation Plan. In my opinion, the Transportation Master Plan Phase 1 engagement summary did not capture the opinions to give a true perspective on such a major topic. 2 in-person engagements at the Ideas Fair and Eats and Beats, a community engagement mapping exercise that hardly any resident was aware of, a virtual engagement session of invited guests at 12 interested party meetings, with the school district, Capital Bikes, West Shore Parks and Rec, and the Chamber of Commerce as some of the invitees. Yet the BC Truckers Association, and more importantly, the Island Equipment Owners Association, people who put more kilometers on Colwood streets and roads than any other professional group, a representative from the Integrated Traffic Enforcement Division, nor BC Hydro or TELUS linesmen, BC Flagging Association, which had 50 fatalities last year in BC, nor was the BC Ambulance Paramedics Association, BC Taxis Association, BC Trucking Alliance Association, but more importantly, at the very best, 150 people out of 20,000 residents had a say in creating the new master transportation plan. No resident in my neighborhood that I'm aware of took part in nor knew anything about this engagement or the surveys for the TMP. Yet we have been one of the most vocal and committed groups to improve traffic flow and safety for pedestrians and cyclists on Metchosin Road. Already? Could I have 2 more minutes?
Look, we don't have a lot of speakers here, so I'll take it around the table. Can I just get approval, a unanimous approval? Okay, you've got it.
Okay, thank you. I submitted some drawings or some pictures. On picture number 1, which was done by Urban Systems in May 2021, it showed the traffic population by the year 2038 between Latoria and Ben Homer to be 6,000. Picture number 2, which was done by McElhaney the following year, June 2022, that was doing a survey for Hatley Road, actually showed the traffic volume on Metchosin Road at that point was 12,125, twice the number in 2024 that they were projecting for 2038. Drawing number 3 lists the number of homes and driveways that Metchosin Road serves. It serves 118 driveways. Soup Road to Kenning Court. And the section that they're proposing to make 2 lanes serves 7 streets, and I lost count after 250 homes. Never mind all the flow through traffic. Drawing number 4 shows my creation for being able to put 3 lanes on Metchosin Road and still stay within the 20-meter right-of-way. How do I do this? Drawing number 5 shows you as an example. The 7-meter buffered bike lane can be reduced to 0.3. There's 2 buffer lanes, so that is a gain of 0.8. Because you see, gain 0.4 on either side, because if you put in, as I've suggested, on drawing number 6, the solid barricade, it is only was it 300 meters wide. So you save that difference. Okay, thank you. I was on drawing number 8 and I had 12.
Well, thank you very much, yeah.
Thank you.
You should what I'm going to recommend, because I it's unfortunate, I don't have the drawings here. I'd like to see a presentation on this. If you could, I'd like to schedule you for a presentation. Looks like you did some homework, Roger, so I really want to see this.
Okay, I thank you very much. And I could close here. If I'm going to give a presentation, we can wait until that date.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else to speak on this particular item?
Your worship, if I can just, Marcy Ms. Lalonde will reach out to Mr. Conrad about the delegation opportunity and make sure that that's on an upcoming agenda as per council's request.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. I haven't seen you folks in probably over a year, so it's nice to see your faces. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to make an opening clarification. I don't know if you actually received the memo that I sent. But I want a clarification on that memo. I want to be clear that I'm not opposing the widening of Metchosin Road per se. Many of us have advocated for widening it from Latoria Boulevard to Souk Road for years. The issue is that staff are proposing a piecemeal segment and are not completing a new transportation master plan that would guide the full widening properly. I do not understand why staff have been reticent to advance this work or why council has not simply directed staff to pursue the full widening and embed it in an updated TMP. For over 6 years, the city has lacked a modern comprehensive transportation plan, master plan. Without it, transport planning and development decisions lack a coherent framework. Safety and efficiency are compromised. Project costs escalate due to inefficiencies. The current ad hoc Metchosin proposal is another example of decision-making without proper planning. I urge council to reject this piecemeal proposal, not because widening is wrong, but because doing it in pieces creates cost, safety, and consistency problems. With the 2026 municipal election approaching, residents expect clear leadership, transparent decisions.
If you could wrap it up right now.
I can. Adherence to good governance principles. The lack of a credible TMP will factor heavily in how council's performance is assessed. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Trevor. Next, please. Anybody else? Would anyone else like to speak to this particular item? John.
On now? Off or on?
You're on. Thank you.
Thank you. These are my follow-up comments. I didn't hear an answer to my question though. My question was to staff about that. I guess you don't get an answer right away. Is that it? I
Oh,
guess.
we could, if we can, I can go to staff right now. Is that all you wanted, John? Just to get an answer to that question?
Okay.
Okay. Turn over, John, could you address that question, please? Thank you.
Probably can't do it justice, your worship. The TMP, the process with regard, if the question is about Metchosin, we've done nothing because we're not in that part of the process yet to go out to the public. If it's with regards to the TMP, Josh, as part of his presentation, can give you a rough idea, and Sandra, our communications person as well, is in the room, can give you an idea with regards to what we have done so far for public engagement. For the Metchosin piece, we've done absolutely nothing. Right.
Yeah. I think that says it. The Royal Bay Homeowners Association has a broad spectrum of members and supporters, including avid cyclists, walkers, and skateboarders. The majority of our members and supporters are working families who need enclosed motorized vehicles to take the children to and from school, to take their children to and from after school activities, to go to the work locations every day, to go shopping and to go to find services, restaurants, entertainment in all kinds of weather. Today is an example. Royal Bay Homeowners Association asks that every member of council do the right thing for the large majority of Colwood citizens by rejecting the staff recommendations for Metchosin Road today and instructing them to conduct a proper public stakeholder consultation before bringing back any more transportation recommendations that are going to impact everyone in our city. We are aware that some individuals on council dislike the Royal Bay Homeowners Association for calling them out publicly on their unethical behavior in the past. We stand by what we previously communicated to the public and what we previously communicated to council. We would ask that you do not punish the majority of Colwood citizens to strike back at the Royal Bay Homeowners Association. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak to this? Okay, on that note, CAO, could you introduce who is speaking to this particular item? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Josh Andrews, our head engineer, is here to speak about the Metchosin Road Widening Project. And I think what's important is this is the initial step for what staff have been looking at in order to bring back what council's direction was in August, which was to make Metchosin Road a priority. And that's the intention behind this report, is to provide what we've done since council passed that motion with a check-in. And that's the intention behind the presentation here this morning. That's why it's on the committee of the whole agenda rather than a council agenda, so that we can make sure that we are looking at all of the aspects that council would like us to look at based on the direction that you've given. Mr. Andrews is here to provide council with an overview of a presentation, as well as Mr. Rosenberg and Mr. Bayless, who will add value to the presentation as we go through it. And I think when Mr. Rosenberg made comments to the council about public feedback, is we're not at that point. What we're doing is providing the check-in with council. Have we got this? Is it aligned right? Is it meeting your expectations as we move forward with this as a project? And there is a robust public engagement component that goes along with this, of which that will be addressed in the presentation. And of course, we're all here to answer any questions that council may have with regard to this project that council has deemed a priority. And that's why we're bringing this forward to you at this time.
Thank you very much, Jason. Over to you, Josh. Or John. John?
Sorry, your worship, it has to start with me. I'm in the unfortunate position to have to own up to a mistake I've made. I generally have administration supporting me significantly and catching a lot of the mistakes when I finalize a report. The report in front of you today makes a recommendation that, and even when I read it today for the first time, I didn't see it. And it's one of those, I don't know if you've ever had it happen, you read a word and you're not reading the word you're reading the word you're thinking. And in the report, it says in the first section for the recommendation between Lagoon Road and Souk Road for the 21-meter right of way. Yep. And that road should have said Latoria. I read it as Latoria. I don't know how many times. I approved it as Latoria. I know how Latoria is spelled, but it says Lagoon. And there's no way administration could catch that because that's technical advice by engineering. So they wouldn't think of it as, okay, we need to change that. So that is solely my fault, and I apologize for that. I know that's led to a lot of consternation, not just with mayor and council, but obviously with the public. That wasn't my intent. Staff is on board with Metchosin widening and enhancement from Latoria to Souk. That enhancement and widening, we believe initially, because we have done a corridor study several years ago. Actually, it was started before my time. It was deferred, I think, about 18 months ago, but we did do a study on Metchosin from Wishart to Souk. And from that study, we kind of have the idea that it's going to need to be 4 lanes in that area. And that's one of the reasons why we've jumped up to 25 meters. And as recently as our last council meeting, we've talked about perhaps going to 30 meters in that area because of the traffic volumes there. So we understand that. We're not sure about 4 lanes between Wishart and Latoria, but we're going to look at it. We're certainly looking at areas for 3 lanes between Wishart and Latoria. But in August of 25, council directed staff to come forward with regards to a corridor study, looking at Metchosin, including it as part of the TMP process. And many, many things have come up during that time, and we haven't really put anything in front of council. And I didn't want council to think that staff had ignored that resolution and not done anything. What we have been doing is kind of like the foundational groundwork. So we've had the entire corridor flown by a drone. So we've been able to then take that and we've got an excellent in-house CAD technician in Ryan Campeau that's laid out the entire road, where all the utility poles are, where all the sidewalks are, where all the trees are. And from that, we're able to overlay all the cross sections, the intended cross sections that are in our subdivision servicing bylaw. And from that, we were able to actually take a look at what we think might be a suggested alternative to what we currently have in our subdivision servicing bylaw and what we currently have in our transportation master plan. So the intent in today's meeting is just kind of give council some thoughts on what we've seen in the corridor, challenges that we've seen in the corridor, and our thinking with regards to potential cross sections from Latoria to Souk, and get some direction with regards to what we put down with regards to direction on an RFP when we go up for proposals for the corridor study for the entire area. The plan is to incorporate the study alongside the TMP so that what we figure out from the study can be embedded in the TMP. And that part of that process will be public engagement. And then obviously some touch points with council with regards to what we found, what we think works. What we're hoping to do today through Josh's presentation is to give you some ideas of what we've seen and what we think might help us with regards to trying to fit the configuration in, because as you know, with the corridor, we've got 90 some utility poles. And in some cases, they're very tight together. We've got some houses that are like very close to the right of way. We've got driveways that will be almost unusable depending on the width that we decide to take. So, and we've seen that confirmed through the drone and the survey work. So we wanted to get an idea from council of what really mattered, saving trees, trying to do different things with regards to utility pole locations, being flexible, and what we're recommending as a one of the options to go forward is this 21-meter cross section that allows us to kind of weave the roadway through the corridor, allowing 3-lane configurations while saving trees and perhaps not having to move all the utility poles. Once we actually get into the study and do the real grunt work, then we'll come back to council and say, this is what we found, but we kind of are looking for, how would you like us to start the process? So that's what Josh is hoping to do with his presentation. Once we get to there, then we'll come back sometime in January, early February with regards to the RFP and what we're going to ask the consultants to look for in the work. And then obviously once we start down the path, we'll engage the public and council throughout the process. So I hope that helps. And again, I really want to apologize for that mistake. That is 100% mine, and I own that.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a quick question on that. Is the who are we using as a consultant? Are you going to put that out to tender?
We will put that out to tender. It's our expectation that urban systems, because they're so familiar with the traffic model and everything else, will likely end up there. But again, under council direction, we're open to any thoughts with regards to how you'd like that process to proceed.
Thank you very much. We'll turn it over to Josh. Josh, you're on.
Thank you very much. And thanks, John. Yeah, so John already covered that we've had the corridor surveyed and done a bunch of work in the initial layout for the road corridor through Metchosin Road. And I see I have a 10-minute timer going, so I'll kick right along. So we had a few potential solutions that are laid out in the report and above us here. Of course, one of the first things we look at are the cross sections from our bylaw. And this one is the 3-lane cross section for arterial roads that lays within a 25-meter right of way. You can see that the sidewalk and bike lanes are located at the property line, and with a boulevard acting as the buffer between the traffic lanes and the bike lane. That boulevard can incorporate utilities, but there's not room at the back of sidewalk for things like the existing trees, infrastructure, or allowance for a tie-in to the existing grade. I think we've discussed before about the difficulties of tying in existing driveways, which are often at steep angles, especially in a city like Colwood, with a new sidewalk that is suddenly pushes that driveway up or down, which makes that approach angle sometimes nearly impossible. So having that sidewalk at property line, like in these standard cross sections, makes putting in this in an existing neighborhood very difficult. So of course, this was the 3-lane from our bylaw that we considered. And could you move it to the next slide, please? Okay, one back, back. There you go, 5 lane. This is the 5 lane cross section within a 30-meter right of way. This has the same sidewalk and bike lane widths located also at property line. This cross sections are applicable in a greenfield development, like as we just discussed, when all the grading and the adjacent properties are established all at once, and you can set those driveways and front yards of everyone all at the same time. It's feasible to actually put in those sidewalks at property line. Thanks. So when trying to, as I just said, when trying to implement these cross sections within the right of way, we encounter many challenges with the existing aspects. Here you can see that the building distance is from building face to building face is 34 meters in the top corner example there, and fitting a 30-meter right of way or even a 25-meter right of way is extremely challenging. You know, acquiring the property needed would be a major issue, and can sometimes make some of those properties, you know, not feasible to have a building on. Those are the property. Sorry, the property. Oh, thanks. The property take for those large right-of-ways is difficult. As also on the slides here, you can see the many existing mature trees on the Metchosin right away that would also be affected. The fences in these photos are often on property line, so you could see, you know, trying to establish or install a sidewalk or bike lane at property line there would be taking out all those trees. You can also see in the top right corner the grade challenges. That fence is on some sort of retaining wall at property line, and the existing ditch and trees are I don't know, however many feet below it. That's the type of grading challenge that runs up and down Metchosin, which would require at least retaining walls, and if not, some other unknown solution to try to fit all of our infrastructure back into the original grade at property line. So those are some of the site challenges that we'd be dealing with. So within the report and within our study of the corridor, this was one of the adapted cross sections that we considered. We looked at 4 in total throughout Metchosin, and this cross section involves 3 lanes with a 19-meter cross section. This incorporated some space at the back of sidewalk to allow for the grade tie-ins. And throughout the corridor, when we looked at it, this would require about 15 poles to be relocated. A note about the pole relocations that we have within the report is these are the ones we are sure of. Of course, BC Hydro, when it comes to detailed design, often has additional pole locations that they need due to the stress that the poles put on each other. So you can not always just relocate one pole at a time. It often has a domino effect to the other poles in the vicinity. So the number of pole relocations is a sort of a minimum number that we're aware of on the preliminary survey of the corridor. Of course, this option that we looked at does not have a buffer between the driving lane and the cycle path. So that's one of the drawbacks which we to make note of. Well, it's number 4 in the report, but of course, second here is the adapted cross section for 4-lane or 5-lane with the turning lane in the middle. So this has also the same adjusted sidewalk and bike lane widths that some of the other cross sections do. It includes a horizontal buffer that allows some room for tie-ins at property line. And but however, the required right-of-way width for this 28-meter and change, depending on the tie-in required, is prohibitive through the corridor, as we discussed earlier. This would also require about 85 poles to be relocated at minimum, and However, as John said earlier, we would consider this 4-lane option for the section between Wishart and Souk. That's why that's still sort of noted in the recommendation, because we're aware that that corridor will eventually need 4-laning in the future. Finally, this is cross section 3. This also includes reductions in the sidewalk and bike lane widths while maintaining a boulevard between the road and the bike lane. The boulevard allows for more utility poles to remain in place, as you can sort of see in the drawing, and with tie-in space at the back of sidewalk for the grade difference, all within a 21-meter cross section. As per the recommendation, we'd still wish to establish a 25-meter right-of-way wherever possible. But this 21-meter cross section gives us a little bit more wiggle room, for lack of a better term. So for hopefully convenience, there's a small comparison between the 4 cross sections that we investigated. Here you can see the associated right-of-way takes between cross sections 1 to 4. The changes and the sidewalk widths and bike lane widths are also noted. The utility pole counts, now those are all minimums. You can see the cross section 2 and 3 have about 5 poles. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. Of course, and some qualifications on the property impacts and the drainage concerns, and just a general note on the feasibility of some of the cross sections. For also demonstration, this is an overlay of the 21-meter cross section on an image from the road itself. You can kind of see where the 25-meter right-of-way puts us and the type of property take that would be required along all of those properties at 25 meters. It's fairly doable in this section. It's less doable in other sections. The 30-meter right-of-way property take is much more substantial. You can see how close it gets to that building there, and I can tell you in many other places in the corridor, you get to people's front doors with the 30-meter cross right away. So it's fairly difficult and would be a very long time frame for the actual acquiring those properties. Oh, also here you can see one of the sort of site adaptations that we'd be considering with jumping the bike lane into the road to make room for a hydro pole, and so that would save a lot of costs by allowing the hydro pole to exist in a boulevard that is, in this case, between a bike lane and a sidewalk, or there might be other cases where it'd be a little more flexible with moving the sidewalk, bike lane, the boulevard from the back of sidewalk to the front of, next to the road or anything like that. Those are ideas, and that's what we'd like to have the corridor investigated and have a better idea of moving forward. If I may, just one more minute. Yeah? Yeah. May I proceed? Okay.
Go ahead, Kelsey.
So just looking at your slide, because I find it difficult to talk about this entire section when we've got different conditions in different areas, right? So just in looking at this particular slide, where the telephone pole is, I'm just wondering, because of the proximity to the buildings that are on the side that's closest to the heading of 21 meters, if instead the road right of way was pushed a little bit more towards the opposite side of the street so that you were a little farther away from the existing properties. Is that what you're referring to when you talk about weaving the right of way through the area?
Great question, and a yes and no. In some cases, we could look at weaving that right of way take in this case, to the west, north.
Yeah,
Down.
not sure what
Yeah,
the
yeah,
other
yeah.
direction.
Yeah, so we could see that, of course, that would impact the other properties a much greater amount. So those negotiations would be questionable. But we could try to do that. When I actually talked about weaving, I meant that that 21-meter cross section that we'd consider might be able to be weaved within a 25-meter right of way. Or 30 if we have 30, it varies through the corridor. But the idea is to try to fit that cross section in whatever is an existing corridor if we have it, or allow us to weave it. And you're right, to try to make it fit within a 25 if we can procure it.
I guess I'll ask more questions later. I just wanted to get you while the slide was up.
Here's right. Okay. Please continue.
I will try to be brief for the rest of it. As I said, the next steps would be it would be nice to establish a cross section so that staff could come forward with a funding request in 2026 for a thorough corridor study, which could then also identify future projects. And then that study, of course, would be presented to council once complete. The intention would be that those identified projects would be start construction in 2026, assuming we can get the design done in 2027, if we can get design done in 2026. So here's the staff recommendation with, we'd probably like a small adjustment to one of the words, but otherwise, if you have any questions, I'd be very happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks. I will open the floor for questions to council, starting with Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Josh. And thank you, John, for your comments and clarification earlier. I think a couple things or maybe background here, going back to the original motion to prioritize Metchosin. I think it's important to clarify that, at least from my perception, that this forms part of the transportation master plan, that this should be incorporated into the updates as something that happens concurrently, and that the transportation master plan is thoroughly vetted. So maybe staff can clarify that this is not a standalone project, that it would be embedded in the TMP update.
100%. We're going to try to run both concurrently so that as part of the public engagement for the TMP in the next process, we'll actually make this a specific conversation about the corridor itself, so that we'll take an opportunity to take advantage of. We should get significantly more engagement throughout the whole community for the TMP, but this will also allow us within the Metchosin itself to get specific engagement as well. So yes, the intent would be that the results of the corridors enhancement study would flow through and be part of what ends up in the TMPs, which allows us then to use that piece for land negotiation, for developer negotiation, and so on as we move forward, because there will be quite a bit of land at the end of the day that we will need in that corridor, regardless of what decisions are made.
Thank you, John. And then the other piece I wanted to raise is that when this was brought forward and thankfully supported by the colleagues on council as making Metchosin a priority, what that was a reflection of was the traffic modeling. And I think it's important for public clarity and transparency to understand what's driving that. The traffic modeling itself, the 4 scenarios that were initially presented to council are linked to the Colwood website. I sent them over to Marcy maybe because I want to talk to it. I think it's easier if people can see it potentially. This council at the time when it was brought forward from Urban Systems, were able to examine 4 different scenarios. And for those that recall, the optimal scenario was what was labeled 2A, which was essentially to widen everything, right? It was to establish 4 lanes on the remaining section of Suke Road to VMP, all of VMP, Latoria, and Metchosin. Ultimately, that was deemed unrealistic. It was far too costly and unnecessary. The scenario that was ultimately selected by council is what's reflected in the motion to widen Metchosin Road, which was section 2C.1. Which proposed 4-laning VMP eventually. Again, I add the term eventually because none of this is to happen tomorrow. But to 4-lane VMP eventually, to look at 3 to 4 lanes on Metchosin Road and potentially 3 lanes on Latoria. And I asked the question at the time because I've approached it with an open mind. I believe in data-driven decisions. I thought, what's the best option? We know that's 2A, but if we're looking at the next tier of options, what makes sense. And the consultant's direction was pretty clear. It was, well, 3 lanes on Latoria obviously will help with signalized intersections at Wishart, Byzantin, other places. But 4 laning, he's like, it's a waste of money. Even if development pays for it, there's no real benefit at this point in time. And I thought that was interesting. So out of that, council as a group said, okay, scenario 2C1, you see on the bottom right there, makes sense. So thus the motion to focus on Metchosin as a priority. And again, that's the history, because we know VMP right now doesn't necessarily need to be widened. It's carrying some increased traffic from South Langford, but generally, with the exception of some traffic slowdown, you know, at key points of the day, mainly because of the intersection at Cairndale, which we're addressing, it's a long way off from needing anything. Whereas Metchosin has a history of being a bottleneck for quite some time now. So that segues me into, and again, you can see the descriptions there. 2C1 is really what we're talking about when we talk about dealing with Metchosin Road today, integrating it into the transportation master plan so that we continue to focus on VMP when the time is right. That little section, let's not forget that little section on Soup Road that would allow traffic to move more smoothly from VMP eastwards into town as well to Metchosin Road. So that brings me to another scenario. I was looking back at some historical information to kind of understand how we got here. 2014, Bunt and Watt were brought in to do a work on the transportation plan, paid for by the city, and as usual with consultants, you get what you pay for. So they were asked to study what made the most sense, and it was really interesting, the wording of this rather old report now, that you know, they had indicated that Metchosin Road already was dealing with issues. They identified that as a scenario whereby, even with 2019, prior to the tripling of density in the beachlands, Metchosin Road was taking the bulk of the traffic from the new development that was starting in Royal Bay and from further afield. And they made a comment in their report that while they were prepared to look at that, the Metchosin Road corridor, they were told by the city, and I'm going to paraphrase, I can send the information in greater detail, but they were told by the city not to focus on that and to focus on forcing traffic up Latoria to BMP. That's in 2014. And even with traffic numbers, what they were at that point, they had said very clearly in their report that Metchosin Road was already experiencing difficulty at key points. And even though the city had directed them to focus on this idea of going up Latoria to BMP, they still felt it prudent throughout their report to talk about the Metchosin Road corridor, and at certain stages of build out, they reference upgrading Metchosin Road from the city of Colwood's southern boundary to Souk Road to include left turn lanes at key locations and manage access to reduce queue and blocking issues. They talked about Metchosin Road and Lagoon Road intersection, identifying signalization there, Metchosin Road and Painter Road, even though they had been directed by the city to focus solely on this VMP piece. That sort of refrain was picked up again in 2021 by McElhaney when they were doing consultation on the sidewalk project, where they again identified that, very clear to add the caveat, they were told by the city to focus on this Latoria plan, not Metchosin, even though in their words, Metchosin was going to be the key issue. You heard earlier from Mr. Conrad when he spoke at the podium there about the great variance in numbers that we see now in people using Metchosin Road. The evidence is incredibly strong today that the vast majority of people travel Metchosin Road. It's the direction they want to go. And I know I'm a little verbose here, but I have to mention it. We talk about widening 4-lane section from Wishart out to Souk, and where does that traffic come from? And I asked that question to staff and everyone here. We have not done a lot of infill development in the Wishart area, around City Hall, in this area here. So where are those people coming from that we need this volume for? They're coming from areas around Byzantin. They're coming from Triangle Mountain, Barrendale. Why are they doing that? Because they're seeking the shortest route to their end goal during peak times, which is the city of Victoria. So why would we logically plan for that, knowing that it's going to happen? It still happens. But when it comes to the people that live in Royal Bay and Beachlands who can reach out and touch Metchosin Road, why would we expect them to do the polar opposite and go up and away from their destination, up Latoria, down Veterans and around? It simply doesn't add up. And our own information here is juxtaposed. We're speaking two different things when we talk about our current transportation plan. We're recognizing on the one hand, the activity of people on a daily basis happening now, but on the flip side, we are so stuck on a plan that all the evidence suggests was political in nature and had nothing to do with data, that we cannot uncouple ourselves from it. And that's sort of the background of where we end up. Now, I've not spoken to the specific cross sections and things because I still think there's work to be done. I applaud staff for being a little innovative and looking outside the boundaries of the planning that's there today, looking at, okay, can we reduce the width of bike lanes or sidewalks? What can we do to play around with this to make this work? I think that's the spirit of innovation and creativity and flexibility we need to see to make something work on a corridor where council after council has rejected it for political reasons because it could be too hard. Now is the time to do the hard work. But what I would like to see, and to let others have their go here, is a motion whereby we examine this in a more generic way, hear from individuals in the community with other ideas, send it to the committee to be thoroughly vetted, embed it in the transportation master plan, and then move forward with a concrete plan like scenario 2C1 that accomplishes what the city needs to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Ward, Councilor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I think it's important, just my comments, I think it's important to step back and consider the road network Colwood will actually need as the community builds out, and what it'll look like and where the major traffic impacts are going to be, and have DCCs been allocated to the right areas and at the right scale. And I think the core issue on Metchosin Road is traffic. I think that's the priority that needs to remain the priority. We need transportation infrastructure that keeps vehicles moving efficiently and gets people where they need to go. This corridor is not it's not a walking destination. It's an arterial route that people primarily drive through. For most of Metchosin Road, pedestrian activity is minimal. Yet we continue to prioritize cycle lanes and wide sidewalks along this stretch. So if Metchosin Road is ever going to become or to support frequent transit, we need to plan accordingly. Currently in this plan, I see no place, like where will buses be able to pull over without backing up traffic every time they stop? This corridor doesn't need traffic calming, it needs traffic flow. So I think the active transportation plan is causing issues with the master transportation plan. And I don't think we have the priority straight for that road. I honestly don't think if I lived in Royal Bay that I would go out to Metchosin Road on my bicycle and ride my bicycle up that huge hill and then ride down Metchosin Road. It doesn't make sense. I would go out through Royal Bay, up through Painter Trail, and get onto the Goose and ride my bicycle that way. So I'm just really conflicted with this plan. I do agree that Metchosin Road needs to be widened. I'm not sure it needs 4 lanes, and I still say that I wish that we would be looking at taking sidewalks and things like that nature back to the property line. And hopefully in the new year, that motion will come forward, even though it was unanimously, approved at the Active Transportation Committee back in April of 2023. It still hasn't come to council. So hopefully that will be taken care of in January, and that will provide some further direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some questions for staff. I have a tough time sort of absorbing all this without correlating it to the actual transportation master plan. Do we have a timeline for when that is to be completed and presented to council and to committees?
Yes, it's the timeline as per that was presented to council. I can't remember when it was first presented in March. I think we'll be back with, with a draft in January. And then it starts the second phase of public engagement. The finalized TMP, I think, is scheduled to be finished in April. I think it's April. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I mean, we're talking about sort of a piecemeal approach. I like what I hear that, you know, that there is congruity with the plan, but quite frankly, you know, I haven't seen it in its completed form. So I don't know exactly what committee wants, what the community really expects. And I hate to say it, but sometimes, you know, these reports that we wait for, sometimes in my experience, they're a little underwhelming and they don't really provide a good roadmap. But it behooves us to, I think, adhere to what's going to come out the other end. And we don't know what that is yet. That's more of a comment. Thank you. I just wonder, and maybe staff can answer this for me. Are we putting the cart before the horse? You're asking me to pick a road cross section, but then that cross section is going to go to the consultant. The consultant's going to look at the corridor. The consultant's going to come back and give us some feedback. I would rather hear what the consultant has to say when they look at the corridor and they come back and they tell us, here's what we recommend. Can you speak to that a little bit? I feel like it's a little backwards.
Thank you.
I'm no engineer, John.
It's a difficult process. I mean, we can start with a blank slate and we can go to a consultant and say, tell us everything you can think. That's going to be a significant amount of money if we give them no direction. They'll look at sideways every way. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a significant amount of money. In the ideal world, staff would love to hear, we'd love our bike lanes this wide. We'd love our sidewalks this wide. We'd like the ability to pull buses off to the side. We'd like every tree to be removed. We'd like every utility pole to be removed. And here's your guidelines. Go ahead and design it. But it's, you know, we want the sidewalks at the back of the property line. But some of these driveways, like you have driveways beside each other, that one driveway is going down, one driveway is going up. So if we were trying to match both driveways, the grade in the sidewalks would be so severe that it wouldn't be accessible. The road would be difficult to drive on because the road grades would change significantly. So we can't meet all masters. So we're really are looking for, this touch point was about if there's anything that absolutely has to occur. For instance, we definitely want sidewalks, but we don't want them any wider than 1.5. We definitely want bike lanes, but we don't want those giant 1.8 meter ones. We're happy with 1.5 meter ones. Those kinds of directions would be great with regards to trying to give them a path to go down. If you don't want to have, if you absolutely insist on having every sidewalk right to the back of property line, then we'll find out how much that's going to cost in retaining walls, how much that's going to cost in property acquisition, because there will be some properties that we would just have to buy the entire property to do that because it'll make it non-functional as a house if we went to say a 30-meter right of way. So any direction that you can give us would help with timing and help with cost. But if we want to kind of slow down a little bit and see it all, we can do that. But for sure, April's timeline, I would say now for the TMP, adding this piece in to make it flavor the TMP, April's not going to be met. So, you know, going to committees several times is great because we get some really good input, because those committees, I think for the most part, are good pieces of information because they're actually engaged, as opposed to the general public really just thinks about their own piece. Most of the committee people are aware of other items like the active transportation and so on, so they think about other things. So we're just trying to get a feel for a direction we can give a consultant to try to save time and money. But certainly we can leave it wide open if you'd like. I hope that helps.
Thank you. I like the answer, and it's food for thought. And I'll circle back just a little bit to the presentation. I don't see it here, but just from what you said just now, John, you're open to ideas. So the first one I wrote to myself, and I heard this for the first time at committee from our cycling community members, that they consider the bi-directional standalone bike lane to be a gold standard. And I don't see things like options here for, like, we just had this discussion a few weeks ago about the multi-use path along Latoria Road. I don't see that as an option. Or a single bi-directional bike lane that's maybe 2 meters. So here we pick up another 2/3 of a meter somewhere in the cross section for something else. That kind of creativity. I mean, I think we're on the right track. And I like, the 3-lane option, but, I'm not completely opposed to twinning that last section down to Souk Road, because I mean, it might not be for today or tomorrow, it could be for 20 years and now from now, we might be well served if there's a big roundabout, which I've heard is potentially on the book. So can you speak to that? Oh, sorry. I know there's a question in there somewhere. It's about the bi-directional bike lane or a multi-use path or sidewalk on one side, like those kind of options.
Yeah, we can certainly look at those things. It does get problematic because there's lots of crossings in that area with regards to houses on both sides. There's a school on both sides. There's a playground, I think, on both sides. So there are, it would be problematic to try to get people to stay to one side. I think we do have some areas where we have the opportunity to perhaps look at that. Like right now, there's a significant amount of land available. I'll call it the Ridley lands. They haven't developed those lands, so they're wide open. So it would be easy to find something there to make it fit. Obviously, the federal lands and a portion of Metchosin there, it's yet to be developed. It's wide open. So there's some opportunities that could be had. So I mean, we can write these down as individual thoughts from counselors and keep that in mind. But I would love direction like voted on to say, here's some sidewalk widths, here's some bi-directional bike lanes. We definitely want you to look at those. Anything you can give us with regards to actually put them in for key considerations in the RFP would be very helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Grove?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wow, there's lots here. So just a couple of straightforward questions, I think. Is this plan from Metchosin Road we're looking at today as a result of the motion to prioritize Metchosin Road? So that's kind of bumped things ahead a bit. Okay.
That's why we brought it forward at this time to let council know that we have been doing some work in the background, although you haven't seen anything since August.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That explains that. Then the is there room for both? I'm looking at the right of ways distance from the report, at not the one on the screen, but the it just shows the right of way widths from roughly around Souk Road all the way through to the gravel pit, really, and how they vary. And you know, in a few spots we need a bit of land, so we got to, but we're just acquiring small strips in under this option 3. Is it the recommendation today?
That is one of the considerations on why we're asking for that to be, if we go to a 30-meter right of way, we're looking at a lot of land acquisition. I think there was even a piece in there about the cost for land acquisition just on a, I mean, that's not a real number. That's just a, let's compare apples to apples. That number could be significantly different.
Correct. So in that wiggle that you're doing with this the preferred, there's room to stagger bus pullouts within that, right? You've got left turn lane, which makes a third lane, and then you have bus pullouts, which potentially would be part of a third lane. And the bus coming the other way would be in a different spot. Does that all work through that entire corridor? Generally, have you looked at it that closely? I mean, I know it's probably doesn't.
Thank you for the question through the chair. We haven't looked that closely. So, but of course, yeah, with the third lane, that lane becomes a left turn lane or shared left turn lane in the middle. Sometimes that could disappear and give us a little bit more room on one side or the other for things like a bus pullout lane. All that would be coming hopefully as part of the corridor study. And if not as a specific piece of the corridor study, it would also be through detailed design, when we'd be able to have a very good idea of where that layout looks like.
Cool. And I'd love to be a part of an event where we discuss lane widths, cycle lane widths, bi-directional lanes, sidewalk widths, all of those details, boulevards, trees, urban forest canopy, you know, there's pressure to plant trees everywhere we need it. So that whole discussion, I would love to be a part of that. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Questions again, Councillor Day.
Thank you. So the plan as it stands, we keep going back to our transportation master plan, which is about what would the ultimate build out of each roadway in Colwood ideally look like. And then we come back to looking at Metchosin Road, which as we're discussing it, we are actually trying to talk about creating more capacity to allow traffic to utilize that roadway in a timely fashion. So I just feel like we're not um, matching apples with apples in a way, because I'm looking for a plan to improve the throughput of the corridor, which may mean specific improvements in specific locations. For example, a left turn lane into the Allendale lands uh, needs to be considered in our planning because that works to offset problems on the busiest section of road in Colwood, which is Soup Road between VMP and Metchosin. So by having that other access point, it also puts that traffic in a newly built area rather than directing traffic through an existing neighborhood to get over to the Allendale intersection. So I guess I'm a bit torn between trying to find, what is the ultimate best road right of way to work towards for the entire Metchosin corridor versus, uh, which I think would inform our plans going forward and be very good to have. But in the shorter term, we may acquire um, different portions of that road right of way at different times. And some of that we acquire may not actually be built out or fully developed right away. It may come later. So some existing trees, for example, might be retained until other areas are further developed. So I'm just trying to get a sense of how to separate the chicken from the egg and get us to, I think, the original road right of way that's in the transportation master plan uh, does fit very closely with what we think we may ultimately need for the corridor. But I'm not sure that we have the other issues sorted out. So in the hybrid proposal from staff, I don't know if you could put it back up again, but it shows the sidewalks not right at the property line and the 3 lanes on Metchosin. That has some issues also for safety. So you're talking about you want to know uh, what the widths are for the sidewalk and the cycle lanes that are required. Um, and I'm concerned because as we've got down to that 1.8 meters, for accessibility reasons, it makes a lot of sense to have that width. Strollers, kids walking to and from school, they don't like to walk in a line. They like to walk talking to each other. And that's sensible. Um, but when you have that slope off the side of the sidewalk, it's one slip up and you're down up at the property line, tumbled down the hill, more or less, and it's not safe for wheelchairs, etc. So I'm just concerned that we're asking the wrong questions at this point in time. I know that we need uh, a road right of way for you to work towards. And I also know that we aren't really, our planning isn't currently focused on what would make the corridor operate more efficiently. So those are conflicts that are going to exist even with the other roads in our transportation plan, because we're talking about an awful lot of intersections. So the roads that have been designed to be wide and fast, like Veterans Memorial Parkway, are in fact becoming more hazardous to travel on because cars are doing at least 80 on a lot of that. And I'm concerned for our safety of our kids trying to cross the roads or park users trying to get across the road. So building big, wide open corridors that move traffic very fast is not what I'm looking for. But I am looking for being able to get the vehicles through efficiently. So we have just a lot of things that have gone not quite as well as we would hope in the past, including having queue issues where we put the Allendale light in. Allendale light and Souk and BMP light are often backing up to the point where they're almost interfering with each other today. We also didn't quite get our left turning lanes long enough. If you're turning into McDonald's off VMP coming down the hill, and we had to change that. So we need to find a way to capture that level of issues that we need to address, and then identify um, our highest priority to make improvements to that corridor. So I know that it's going to be an expensive project. We're not going to be able to do everything all at once for sure, but we may be able to identify key areas that would greatly improve the commuting experience, the transit experience in the next 5 years that we could do incrementally as part of a bigger plan. And I'd just like to say also that the infrastructure and committee did discuss the transportation master plan considerably, and there's lots of different points of view on it. But we are all pretty much agreed that, Metchosin Road needed to be at least 3, if not 4 lanes, and that it was a critical route for efficient transportation of Colwood residents. So I'd just like to know how we could move this plan forward with those kinds of level of points for people to consider and comment on. So when we're going out to the public, we haven't even included the comments that came from the infrastructure committee to date. And hopefully they will be used to help inform the public in the process. But we need to have that big diagram on the wall with some cutouts and some explanations of what we're trying to do. And we need to find ways to make sure that the investments we put in today don't have to get ripped out tomorrow. Whatever that takes. And I'm not sure. Currently, I have not seen traffic really held up between Wishart and Souk Road on Metchosin. That area travels fairly quickly compared to the other portion of it. So I do understand the frustration coming from people who are accessing from closer to Latoria Road on Metchosin Road. So I think that area, although probably the most difficult to achieve, is probably one of the higher priorities for being able to get traffic moving more quickly through that corridor.
Thanks very much, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep it brief. I'm having a little bit of a hard time supporting the staff recommendation tonight, but purely for me, it's because I don't believe this has gone to committee yet, these designs, and I think that this needs to happen. So I just have a really hard time offering fulsome feedback without it having gone to the committee first, and then come back to council with their comments. Also an opportunity for Mr. Apperly to be able to give a delegation to the committee. So I see that Councillor Ward has his light on, but I would like to make a recommendation to refer this to the committee.
I'll come back to you. I'll go for the first time myself here. I guess my biggest worries right now about this whole project is the risks of spending millions of dollars to get a road that's marginally better. It's always what is bothering me. And just from experience now, having to go to downtown a couple times a week right now, and I look at something and it's really, I think we can sit here and talk about data, how many vehicles are going down, what the levels of service are for intersections. We can do all that data, right? All that data analysis. I haven't seen anything recent, but what it all comes down to really is we have this thing that we paid money for, and we developed this traffic model, right? This moving, dynamic model, and I think it's really good because I look at when I travel down, I go to the city now. I don't even bother going down the Trans Canada anymore. I actually find it way faster going down Island Highway now. And it's really interesting. You look at the traffic, it's seeing, 5 times, 10 times more traffic than our Metchosin Road. But the trick there I notice is they keep the traffic moving. Even with the speed limit, they got speed limits at 40 kilometers an hour from the intersection of Craigflower all the way down right into the city, 40 kilometers an hour. But they keep it moving. And you don't get as mad because you're moving all the time. So I think that's what I'm looking for, myself personally, what I'm looking for my chosen road right now. How do we keep the traffic moving? So so I think that's the thought process. And to me, like I said, I thought that was why we developed that traffic model. How do we keep the traffic moving? How do we keep the traffic moving? And no matter what that number is going to be, if it's 18,000 or 20,000 or 25,000, keep the traffic moving. So I guess that's how I'm looking at it. But I do have some specific questions right now where I thought this is a good start. And I love the comparisons that you did. That was a good table. That's a really good table. But I just wish it had a little more. And I know it's very difficult because you guys had the high level land costs, acquisition costs, you had them there. Well, that's kind of cool. But it would have been so nice because, it's a second sober thought when if you were to put a price tag, rough order of magnitude for each of those options. Because, maybe we're not going to have the platinum solution, maybe not the gold, maybe it's the silver, but as long as we keep the traffic moving, right? That's what it comes down to. So the other thing that I just thought, I know that there's constraints here because you're going to have to go out to tender and get. I just hope, just my own wish, if I had it my way, I'd like to get some really good people that know what they're doing. I'm sorry, I've lost a little confidence in some of our I shouldn't say this out loud, but I just have lost confidence in some of our consultants because it seems like the same things keep coming back to us. I don't know. Maybe it's a perception, and I can certainly be changed on this. But maybe the people that did that corridor in Esquimalt, Victoria, maybe they're the people that we need because it seems to work. Some other things that I thought that were interesting and weren't addressed, for example, we're going to have to deal with that drainage, right? That's a consideration. And if we're going to go underground, that's another consideration. That's another option. What if we were to put all the power and utility lines underground? Now, I mean, it's expensive, but if you have to start digging up the ground for drainage, you might as well go all the way. And which brings me to another point. I do notice that there's some really neat things happening. Like they use the power poles they share utilities. And so we don't necessarily need a telephone poles and power poles, right? We can put them all on one pole now. Why not? Uh, So I didn't see any of that type of thing addressed. Now, maybe that's part of the refinement. And so, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but I'm just saying just what I see. And that's just my little engineering head clicking away here. So, um, but I think what would be really good, and you started that on that one map where you identify uh, basically where what we have is right away. You went ting 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 ting. If you would have just parceled that a little more, that would have been phenomenal because then we're seeing the bigger concept and the constraints because it's really good. You started something really good, and I thought, oh shoot, I wish it would just a little more detailed here, and I would have been really good because then I would have understood what had to be done. Because, and why do I say that? Because I think you do need that overall picture of what that corridor is going to look like, right? But my idea is that we don't have to do it all at once. As long as we got the whole picture of what we're going to be doing. I think the way that we do it is we can accelerate this project and we can phase it. We can say, hey, where's the biggest critical bottlenecks to keep that flow moving? And that's what we tackle. That's where we put the turning lanes right away. So we can prioritize ourselves if we have that overall picture of what we're trying to do, and then it's backed up by our model. That's just my thoughts. It's not a question. I'm sorry, but I don't know if this makes sense to you guys. That's what I would do, and then we can show real progress because this is happening now. This problems that we're having on Metchosin is real today. We're listening to our citizens, right? So to me, then, let's not just try to eat the whole elephant at once right now. We'll understand how to fix that big elephant. We know here's all the issues, but let's eat it piece by piece, and let's get some wins for our citizens in Colwood. That's my thoughts on this. And yeah, so, I guess this is where I'm having problems trying to pick one solution right now, because I think what we have to do is still look at it at a higher level and then bring those experts in, because, I don't think any of us here are traffic engineers, but maybe someone that's much better than what we have right now. And the other thing, a great comment made by someone in public here, and I thought they made a really good point. I sorry, I'm not laughing, but I thought it was kind of odd with some of the people that we surveyed. I scratched my head a little bit because I thought, why didn't, because here I was at the truck parade on Saturday night there, and here's the Island Owners Equipment Association and the truck parades and all the trucks, and I don't see that as someone that we even asked. I would think that, geez, they would be really cool to ask them to get their feedback instead of an academic institution or a business association. You know what I mean? So just we can rethink that and when we do this. So that's my first round. This is my comments. I think you were going to say something, John. You can.
I was gonna say you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, we've got at my size, I don't use elephant. I use apple. But we've got a big apple. We got to take a lot of bites out of it. And I think the question is, what are those first little bites? But if we can figure out what the apple looks like, the width of the corridor, the ideas behind, widths of bicycle lanes, protection, those kinds of things, lane widths, then we can start fitting in the really quick wins, like left turn lanes where we're literally just taking asphalt and widening it to put in some left turn lanes. That will keep the traffic flowing. You're not putting in sidewalks, you're not putting in bike lanes, but that keeps the traffic flowing. And then, when we start formalizing things, we are putting blockages in. So when you put an intersection, a signalized Lagoon and Metchosin, that is going to slow down traffic, as opposed to, say, a left-hand turn lane onto Hatley or Painter. That will speed up traffic because you'll get them off and it's less formal. So, and you do it for lesser bucks, and those kinds of things can do localized drainage. But you get into an intersection, you got to put a bunch of curbs in, you got to formalize the drainage. You're going to slow down the traffic, you'll put some sidewalks in. So you'll get some real nice formal pieces, but they won't be connected to anything. So it is about, what do you want to see in the next 5 years that it's actually achievable, while thinking about the next 20, 30, 40 years with regards to ultimately what the corridor will look like. And that's the two pieces. Figure out what the corridor should look like, and then hone in the next 5 years, and stay on top of your TMP, right? Get back to it every 5 years. Don't let it be 10 years before you get back to it. Because as some of the examples we've heard tonight, the traffic has changed significantly, right, in over those years. So you do want to get looking at those sooner rather than later once you go down that path. But what you decide today will not be what's going to end up 40 years from now, but you can set a path towards that direction.
Yeah, so I guess that was what I was worried about, that we're constraining ourselves already. And I'm going, crap, do we want to do this? Like, I don't know. And Dougie and his flying cars concept anyways, but that's a different story. But yeah, so just to sort of say solid, this is the way it's going to be, maybe there's a different holistic way to do this, and to get a win for us quickly without, like right now, we put a bunch of sidewalks in where maybe we're scratching our heads thinking, oh, geez, maybe we shouldn't have did it there now that we reflect back, right? So I guess that's my biggest fear, that we make a decision and then some council 10 years down the line is going to say, those idiots back there, what were they thinking? Because we made a decision and we've constrained ourselves. So I guess what I'm getting at right now is, I don't know what you think about this, but I guess my question is, what do you think of a different approach, within mind that we want to keep that traffic moving? So let's get some easy wins right now to keep that traffic moving. Can we just put in turning lanes right now in certain spots right now strategically? Get the wins right now. Show the people that we are listening to them and are moving the traffic. It may not be the perfect solution, and maybe something else comes out of this that we just go, oh, I don't know. It's a different strategy. I know that right now, because I know how we are right now. We're sort of saying, let's determine what that cross section is going to be, and that's it. But people have done that in the past. Now we're going, oh, geez, what were those fools thinking back then? But things have changed. Anyways, yeah, that's just my thoughts on this. I will turn it over to Mr. Ward. Council Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just speak to your comments. I think definitely the goal is to keep traffic moving, and as Councillor Day alluded to as well, it's also about safety. And again, it's about timing. I think we run the risk of paralysis through analysis if we keep kicking a decision down the road. We are now 6 years away, 6 years removed from a report from Watt and Bunt that said, this is literally the quote from their report: widening of Metchosin Road was not considered by either consultant, even though most of the intersections along the Metchosin corridor north of the sites being Royal Bay and Beachlands, exceeded desired performance thresholds. This was in 2019. The intersections along Metchosin were already identified by traffic consultants as a problem. Widening of Metchosin Road was recommended, but not considered. It was considered inconsistent with Colwood's design objectives. So again, it was a political decision that we are not going to do anything on Metchosin Road because we want to, as it says here, encourage as much traffic as possible to route via veterans. 5 years before that, they shut down the potential exit of Ryder Hedgedall out onto Royal Bay Drive into Upper Royal Bay, which would connect to Wishart. Interestingly, when that was shut down, the concern was that Royal Bay traffic would exit out and go to Wishart and carry along there and even go up Carindale to VMP. They didn't want traffic to go up VMP. So the after effect noted in the report was that Royal Bay site generated traffic is shown to divert to Metchosin Road. That was considered okay in 2014. And in 2019, we already knew that the road was overwhelmed. We chose not to do anything then. And now we're sitting here talking about not doing anything now. So I agree with what you're saying about left turn lanes and things, but I think they have to form part of the larger plan, and that's the transportation master plan. I also think the transportation master plan supersedes the active transportation network plan. Right now, we are operating in a position where decisions are being made based on the active transportation network plan, while we're in the process of redoing the plan that supersedes it and should guide it. And that's where respectfully I would disagree with Councillor Olson's suggestion just to refer this to committee, because the committee is comprised of members of the active network transportation plan and infrastructure, and there's too much weight, I think, on active transportation when it comes to this decision. This is about the road corridor, which is defined as an arterial, where we know traffic volumes have significantly exceeded what's acceptable, even prior to this plan becoming redundant in 2022 in the last council meeting when they tripled density of the beachlands. So all of this was already known years before that happened. So we are way behind the 8 ball in doing something. So I'll wait and see how the other motion goes if a motion is put forward, but I certainly have a motion myself to put forward, which would see us direct staff to work, generally speaking, on what they put forward within the confines of the master plan, with a goal that at that point, when something comes forward to say, this is what we're proposing for the Metchosin Road sector, generally speaking, with room to adapt and be innovative, then it could go to committee and then come to council as part of an updated transportation master plan. But I'll reserve until we voted on anything else.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I see no other questions and I will open the floor for a motion then, please. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I completely respect your opinion, Councillor Ward, but I do feel that we need to fully utilize the knowledge and experience of our committee. And so I would like to make a motion that we refer this back to committee to look at these cross sections and have the committee chew on it and bring it back to council.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder on that, please? Okay, Councillor Day. And I will open it up for discussion then. Councillor Ward. Or wait a sec, I'll let you motivate. You've motivated Councillor Day. Do you want to do a second motivation on that?
I wouldn't mind.
Okay, I will go to you and then I'll go to Councillor Ward.
Yeah, so just to motivate for the referral to the committee, these citizens, they're half active transportation people, half infrastructure people. And the real reason for bringing it back there is to try to bring more awareness to what the issues are within our community so that they can help us when it comes to consulting with the public as well. Because the more we discuss this, the more points of view are put on the table. I think the more benefit we can gain from their offering of their expertise to us. And it would be kind of unfair to simply bypass them. I think they give a lot of their time and attention to city matters to try to assist us, and we need to recognize that and honor their putting their names forward by seeking their input.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't discount what Councillor Day has said. I think it absolutely should go to committee. My belief is that this should go to committee once staff has had an opportunity to take council's feedback, which they've already received this evening, refine the plan, embed it into the update for the transportation master plan, and incorporate some of those comments so that the committee is really reviewing something that is a realistic proposal. What we have before us tonight, as we've already heard, contains incorrect information. It references Lagoon Road and not Latoria Road. So there would be questions from the committee about what that cross section would look like. You know, and there's been a significant amount of feedback already provided here, which frankly would be missed unless that committee reviews this meeting. So my belief is that, and I guess maybe this is a private sector view, is that you can work and plan concurrently. When we hit pause on everything, you know, we end up just holding. So now we would refer this to committee. We've got to wait for that to come back, see what comes out of that, and then take it forward. In the meantime, you know, Mr. Mayor, you mentioned, you know, 10 years later, there'll be folks that go, well, geez, you know, what were those guys doing making that decision? Well, here we are 10 years later looking back and going, well, what were those guys? They couldn't make a decision. I don't want 10 years from now people to look back and go, well, every time there was anything difficult that cropped up, it got punted to a committee and they ended up circling back around again and again and again. I mean, the way I view it, and maybe I'm alone in this, is that time is running out. Certainly in this term, we're 3 years in. Decisions were made in 2022 that drastically changed the conditions for this plant, the whole master transportation plan, which by extension should have changed the active transportation network plan. It should have gone for a thorough review. It hasn't. We've given staff back in 2022 guidance to use that moving forward. We're contradicting ourselves left, right, and center. And so just kicking this to committee really solves nothing. And we're back in the same scenario where we can, you know, look back now after 4 years, we'll be able to say, well, we referred a lot to committee. Good for us. Traffic is still a major issue. And it remains that way. So I don't hold out hope. I think this will go to committee. It will eventually find its way back, but I just think that's the wrong move personally. Thank you.
Thanks. I don't disagree with you, Councillor Ward, on this, but I think the easiest win on this right now is it's not ready. I can tell you that. But I still think this idea that I have, and I don't even know how to word it yet. I'm just calculating in my own head. But there is something that we can do, and you're right. Everyone is saying the same thing around here. Like I'm as frustrated as everybody else, but I know that we can do these simple things right now that you guys are all thinking anyways. I think you guys even know where you want to put turning lanes, for example. Like, there are things that we can do now. Like, why are we waiting? Like, it's going to be part of whatever cross section we decide on. So I guess that's where I'm going with this. That's a true win because that's getting the traffic moving again. Because that's the biggest frustration along Metchosin that I see all the time. I'm always stopping because someone's trying to turn off someplace, right? So that's how I see things in life. It's a quick win. It's, we're actually doing something about this because no matter which way anyone decides we're going to do, it's more yakety yak, as I call it, and we're not getting stuff done. So that's just my humble opinion. Councillor, Councillor Grove, go ahead. You were there, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Day then. Okay,
I will
Councillor
go with
Grove?
this.
I turned it off and on
Oh,
again.
okay. Go ahead, Councillor.
Just because as I hear every contribution, it just bumps around so badly. I think the next committee date is for when? Does anybody know
I think it's February, but it could be wrong. I can't remember off the top of my head.
my thinking is that regardless, it will take time. Could we add some information from this event to that presentation to help at least move it forward? But I'm also find it appealing to consider this notion that we add a few improvements here and there, as the mayor and Councilor Ward have alluded to. And I would also like to make a comment about the woulda, shoulda, coulda stuff. That with all due respect, 20 years ago, that intersection at Lagoon Road and Metchosin was packed full of cars, and they were lined up down to Havenwood because we didn't have a left turn on Lagoon onto Metchosin. And cars were literally lined up to Havenwood every morning at school drop off and again at pickup. The traffic on Metchosin was jammed out so tight they'd use the bakery parking lot as a right turn lane to pass people, including people that were turning right. So there was occasional near accidents due to that. This problem doesn't start with Royal Bay, doesn't start with Wishart developments, density, anything. It started many, many years ago, and with all deference to our forefathers, they messed up by designing it that way in the first place and should never have probably allowed that plaza to be built. If you want to go back on the woulda, shoulda, coulda stuff, we have a serious problem on Metchosin Road with traffic. I'd suggest we have a serious problem in all of Colwood with traffic, as does the entire Lower Island, as does all of North America, if not the world. So we have to start thinking about new age and forward-looking solutions. And I'm not sure that we make 4 lanes, which would destroy the scope of the street, in my opinion, that we need to find other alternatives. And since transit is part of the active transportation definition, I think that certainly is part of it. So given that perspective, I'm not in such a hurry to start making small changes, although that left turn off Lagoon onto Metchosin is a small change, and that sure fixed that, or didn't fix it. It sure made that left turn or that situation a lot better, and I witnessed that. So I think I would support the idea of sending this to committee with perhaps an update to this, not this exact same, whatever. We can move this forward a bit before that happens. Otherwise, I'm willing to support the staff recommendation because from that point, it would be a phased thing anyhow. We don't even know if we have any money for this, right? So I think I support the motion regarding the committee reference, but failing that, I would happily support the staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Jordison, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question to staff. When were the sidewalks installed along the newer sidewalks on Metchosin Road?
Going off memory, I believe it was 2021 on Metchosin. Look at their roads.
2021?
Yeah.
So I guess that leads to my concern about just dealing with the hard issue here. I mean, if we were projecting out and thinking ahead and thinking futuristic at that time. Why, like, we're essentially gonna have to be ripping those up if we expand. We spent a lot of money building 2 meter sidewalks or 1.8 for the sole purpose of accessibility and having strollers go side by side to be met with telephone poles along the sidewalks. And so I just feel like we keep missing the point and we keep missing the mark. And um, it's costing people money. It costs taxpayers money. And so I think we need to really think about this and really think about what needs to be built here and do it right off the mark. And I'm not, I don't support it going to committee at this point. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Day.
Thank you. So much to think about. Being one of the people who was here for the last 20 years, I have to say that not every decision that council made was one that every single, not all decisions are unanimous. And I was very frustrated when we created the Transportation Master Plan in 2015 that we didn't have an actual representation of the road widths that we had to work with in any part of Colwood. So that was it was a big piece of work that was done to try to capture what that council at that time wanted the ultimate build out to be, but it failed to recognize the real world conditions. So I just wanted to take this moment, whether it's referred or not, to say that I really appreciate the staff efforts to work with the drone to come up and bring us this report and give us the actual what we got to work with and what we're going to have to find and what our problems are, as difficult as they are to work around. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And I'm very happy to support either way of doing this. If we want to give some recommendations and request that this get referred to the committee, that's all right with me. But I would really like to include more information to the committee if possible. If the choice is give what we've got here today to the committee to try to wrestle with, or wrestle with it now and give them something better, I can do that. But I really think that we need to allow staff to give us more input to the committee to provide, where we go from here, to give it a second look and to be able to inform. There's been a lot of words exchanged here around the table, even if we haven't put them in a clear cut, easy to pass along motion. There's been a lot of flavor of what people's concerns are around this plan. And I do believe that staff will make every effort to incorporate that into what comes forward. All of us are human. They may miss something that somebody said because we're not very good at handing it off in a nice bow tied up motion. But at the same time, we're all moving forward and progressing what could be a better plan for Colwood going forward, informed by more realistic on the ground information than what we had in 2015 when we did the Transportation Master Plan.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Marcy, I don't know if you can bring up the motion. I just want to state that I'm not trying to intentionally delay this process by, not moving it forward today. I just want to make sure that we have all of the information in front of us to make an informed and educated decision. So that is why I want to refer it to committee for their feedback. So if there's somebody at the table that would like to make a friendly amendment to this motion, I'd be happy to hear their comments on that.
John, please.
Sorry, Your Worship, I hate to interject, and I'm not at the table. I recognize that. We did this work off the side of our desk. I'm not sure we can bring back in any kind of timely manner with our own staff of a wholesome corridor look. That's what the consultants would do for us. It's hundreds of hours of work, not a couple of dozen hours of work. I mean, we can give you, a tour of the corridor where we stop at a couple of places and say, when we talk about grade challenges, here's a grade challenge. When we talk about utility pole challenge, here's a utility pole issue. When we talk about a driveway challenge, here's a driveway challenge, to give you an idea of what we're up against, what will lead to cost, what will lead to issues. But we're not going to be able to put something in front of committee that says, here's the whole menu, pick what you like. It is more so a case of, give us an idea of what you'd like us to focus on, or at least head down that path to see what it looks like and what our results come from. But we're not going to be able to put something really fulsome in front of the committee from a staff perspective, at least not in a timely fashion.
Can I say something,
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor?
please.
I understand that, John, but also there was reference this evening about Mr. Apperly making a delegation. And so, I just feel like that's an opportunity there for that delegation to happen at the committee level. Sorry, I thought it was Mr.
No,
Apperly.
Mr. Conrad. Mr.
Mr.
Conrad.
Conrad, sorry.
I know.
Yeah,
It was one of you three.
I'm not
the
for
half dumpling gang. Yes, I know.
I'm not for a minute suggesting the committee's not a good idea. I'm just trying to taper expectations with regards to what we can put in front of the committee for consideration. I do love the idea of putting up plans to say, hey, build your own cross section, and we can talk about what that would look like and what the implications of that cross section looks like. That'd be a great exercise to have. So just,
I think if we're leaning towards, I think it was option cross-section 3, it would be nice to get some feedback from the committee on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I actually I sort of like that idea too, John. I think that's that will be an eye opener for the entire council to go for a van ride to see some of the constraints. I think it's a great idea actually, and see, I'm just not willing right now where I'm sitting right now because of the questions that I have in my own head. I'm willing to, to vote on any of the recommendations here. That's the issue really, because there are issues and concerns, and some things that require some answers. But I started sitting here going, "Holy mackerel, this is a big job. You don't even have the people to do it. Like you just don't." I'm just looking around there and I'm watching faces and I can see that everybody's going, "Oh, I don't think I can do this." Yes, I can read faces, but it's because it is big. It's a big job. And that's why I guess this is why I started leaning towards, what can we do? What can we do? We don't have to go out necessarily and spend time and lots of money on consultants. And I think everyone around in this room has a good idea of how we can do some, what do I say, low hanging fruit solutions to some of the, keeping the traffic flowing on Metchosin. I know you guys know, I'm pretty sure, but I almost feel like this has to be. I'm not willing to make a decision on anyone on this recommendation right now. I'm just not. I just feel that there's still a lot of information missing right now. So, it's almost like we want to refer, like, to get that advice from the other committee. That's one end of it. But even getting, getting feedback from the IOEA, just to extend that a little more. And then I'd like to go see what you guys are talking about, to tell you the truth. Because I can't see things through your eyes. I can only just see things through my eyes. So that's all part of this one motion here, I think, that we want to do. Okay, Councillor Grove, go ahead, please.
I still think that, but they've narrowed it down. I think a couple of those scenarios were not practical. I think the staff recommendation of the 21 meter right of way width and design wiggling its way along makes a lot of sense to me in a lot of places that I've looked at. The thing is, it's a big problem, but if it was easy, everybody would have fixed it years ago. And I think that explains a lot to why we're sitting here still. It's not something that can be easily solved. Presumably it would have been done. The other aspect, perhaps we can get a bigger bus and combine the committee with staff, or the appropriate staff, of course, and the mayor and council, and we could all pile on this bus and maybe turn that committee meeting into a tour and have us take notes and make it a working tour. I'm not sure. It would be along the lines of this motion, but just adding that element to it. And then the material presented could be focused on the third recommendation. I keep losing track of what it is, the staff recommendation. And I'm just wondering if that might,
There's a motion on the floor.
well, that would be an amendment that I'm talking about. Is that not possible? No.
Yeah. It is it's not defer, it's refer, I think. Refer? Yeah, we're referring. Okay.
Well,
guess
I'm just,
I just want to I just want to make sure I heard you correctly, John, that you've heard what we had to say here. Is there anything you can do to beef this up right now and so that because I'm just trying to see the advantage of referring this, like what is going to be the advantage? Okay, we certainly will get feedback from the infrastructure people. That's a good thing. That's a real good thing to me. I can see that, but is it going to be just this report that you send to them, or can you do other things? Can you try to incorporate what you've heard here today?
I certainly have a couple of ideas, and I obviously want to run through them with Josh and Joshua with regards to next steps. But certainly, if we're going to go on a tour, we'll pick out some like specific areas and say, okay, when we talk about a problem with utility poles and how we'd solve it, here's a spot. This is what it would look like. When we talk about a driveway that's going to cause us an issue if you put the sidewalk right on the property line, here's an issue. This is how, these are your choices and how do you fix it, right? You can fix it with money. You can fix it, with relocation of things. When we talk, we can take a look at a transit lane. Where do we take a bus stop and do that? So we can probably pick a handful of scenarios, show them to you, let you see what you're up against. And then obviously those types of scenarios will happen multiple times throughout the corridor. So I think we can give you some more information. I'm not sure I just didn't want people to think that we're gonna give you that golden apple to solve all of it with the committee meeting.
Yeah, it became apparent my own self sitting here thinking I don't know how you guys are even going to do it. Like it's such a good job. Okay. Councilor Day.
Thank you. Just a quick question. First of all, could we schedule a special infrastructure and transportation meeting so that we could get moving with this?
my recommendation to council, if you are referring it to committee, the next committee meeting is in February. In order to move this forward, I think it would be important to do this work in January to try and schedule that so that we can have the tour. Referring it to committee will mean that there is more time that goes into this project that we hadn't contemplated, which will take more time to bring it into the TMP, but we will certainly take that direction of council if that's what you wish to do. When you're looking at these sorts of things, council's diving into the details, right? Because you have certain cross sections. The detailed plan really is in front of you, right? These are just some of the considerations that are really high level. As you get into the detailed design, then you can actually get into the specific conflicts that you've got. And when I think about when council was considering 333 Metchosin, and whether it was 30 meters or 25 meters, these are the decisions that are in front of council that you're dealing with on a continual basis without the Metchosin road being ultimately dedicated and what council would like to see. So if you look at the other application that the public hearing is closed, but that was another item that council had considered at that time was, is that right of way appropriate on that particular property? So the longer that this goes on, the more opportunities that you lose through development applications to actually get the right of way that ultimately may be that choice. So we can certainly refer that to committee. We would look to do a special committee meeting in January, but January is starting to fill up because we have budget discussions with council. So the timeline becomes quite tight. The intention to bring this to council was to give you that high level overview and have we got this right? And if you want it to go to a committee, we can certainly do that, but there is an impact on timeline. Like that's just a foregone conclusion because we're not dealing with it now. We're referring it to committee for more information. that will delay the RFP until we get that in. And as long as council is aware of that, we can make that happen.
The other question was whether or not, from the drone work that you've been doing, if we could piece together the actual road sections for the committee so that we'd be actually, able to be in committee and looking at what we're talking about.
That work's already complete.
That's what I thought, that it might already be ready to go. So I certainly think that it has merit to come to the committee and to give us a chance. I know that it would be easier to immediately go out and seek a consultant, but we might be getting information that isn't what we're looking for. And I think that's why it's important to take that extra time. And I'm willing to do whatever I can to help make that come to fruition sooner.
Okay, I think I've heard enough. I'm going to call the question right now on the motion to refer. All those in favor, please. And those opposed. Councillor Ward and Councillor Jordison. Okay, the motion carries, and let's please, under the understanding that we get this meeting in January, please. Okay, we're gonna move on to item 5.2, which is the Colwood Short-Term Economic Action Plan. And
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just noticing what the time was right now. We do have 2 remaining items on the agenda. We do have another meeting right after this at 5 that we have some people that are waiting to attend. So I was just going to provide an option that we could move the economic action plan to the first meeting of January, and the one for the West Shore feedback could go directly on the council agenda.
that sounds perfect, actually. Thank you very much.
If we could get a motion for that, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jordison, Councillor Grove. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. I'm just going to take a recess here then. We'll gather back here at 5.